What would we think about someone who had spent all his inheritance on wild orgies, went bankrupt, dressed in rags, smelled of pig dung, and wanted to come home? That's our story today. It's about a father and two sons, and is found in Luke chapter 15. A man had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me." So he divided his wealth between them. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey into a distant country. And there he squandered his estate with loose living. The older son pictures those who've always attended church and never really gotten into serious trouble or strayed too far from God. The younger son pictures all the rest of us, those who've wandered far from God and gotten their lives in a real spiritual and financial mess. A lazy and greedy second son bled his father dry, taking what he could of his inheritance before his father's death. In our society, as well as theirs, that would be presumptuous. Verse 12 reveals that he divided the inheritance between them. Both children received their inheritance as a result. Now, when he'd spent everything, a severe famine occurred in that country, and he began to be impoverished. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods that the swine were eating, and no one was giving anything to him. A son squandered his inheritance in a far distant country. Unlike the Jews, whose law required them giving to the poor, not many other nations around believed in giving alms. Verse 16 confirms that no one gave him anything. He was in a desperate situation, on the edge of death. But when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread? But I'm dying here with hunger. I'll get up and go to my father, and I'll say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired men.' So he got up and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him, and ran and embraced him and kissed him." We may want to be independent, but eventually realize how much we need each other. We may burn bridges, offend others, and cut off contact. We may never be able to repair some of the damaged relationships in our life, but we can always repair our damaged relationship with God. We see the beginning of repentance in the prodigal son, coming to a better mind. Repentance is a change of mind. But as John told the Pharisees and Sadducees who came to his baptism, bring forth fruits of repentance. So the younger son made the difficult journey home in shame. Would his father turn his back and disown him? Would the father demand a probation period? Would he accuse the wasteful son of embarrassing the family name? How do we treat those who are taking cautious, awkward steps out of the stench of life's tragically bad decisions back to God? And the son said to him, "Father, I've sinned against heaven, and in your sight I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his slaves, "Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet." We've all distanced ourselves from God at times. We've turned our back on him and put heaven to shame. Yet all that is forgotten in an instant when we make any effort to return. Even while the son was a long way off, His return brought great joy to his father. And bring the fattened calf, kill it, and let's eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead, and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found, and they began to celebrate. If we're still a long way off, let's begin making a few steps of return to God. God's already running to greet us with great joy. The son's confession was interrupted by his father's joy. As we begin to pray again, God forgives, even before we finish. Now his older son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And he summoned one of the servants and began inquiring what these things could be. And he said to him, "Your brother's come home, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he's received him back safe and sound." The story is really about two lost sons. The loyal son was also lost. A faithful churchgoer can also be lost. There are dangers even among those who've never left church, never gone wild, and never been disloyal to their families. We can become self-righteous, self-centered, and merciless. But he became angry and wasn't willing to go in. And his father came out and began pleading with him. But he answered and said to his father, "Look, for so many years I've been serving you, and I've never neglected a command of yours. And yet you've never given me a young goat so that I may celebrate with my friends." He was lost, without mercy and grace, lost in hard-heartedness and unforgiveness. Do we carry a grudge against anyone who's trying to find their way back home? Are our judgmental attitudes an obstacle between others and God? Let's rejoice because he was lost, but now he's found. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, "Son, you've always been with me, and all that is mine is yours." But we had to celebrate and rejoice, for this brother of yours was dead and has begun to live, and was lost and has been found. The bankrupt son is us when we've wandered from the Lord. The hard-hearted son is us when we mercilessly judge others who have failed. Let's see ourselves in both sons, and God as our merciful Father, joyfully welcoming us home and tenderly reminding us of our reward for faithfulness.